Welcome back to ATL Day Ones, fam. I am Tenitra. This is Jarvis, and you guys are the family that keeps us getting closer to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube on a daily
Ooh.
basis. So keep it coming, people. Keep it coming. Keep subscribing, keep liking, and keep giving us a thumbs up on any platform where you check out your podcast. And what does the thumbs up look like? It's a 5-star review. You've been giving it to us. Keep giving it to us and tell your friends to go and do the same. Appreciate you guys for that and always rocking with us. And also, we always appreciate when we are able to give you guys the lowdown and the dirty, the behind the scenes, especially if we can give it to you real time and give you guys reaction. So, as you guys know, this week is the wrap up of OTAs. Mandatory minicamp will begin next week. Arthur Smith and company spoke to the media today about that, Jarvis. And one of the things that Arthur Smith said, and I love it, is he put it out there. His expectation is for everybody to be at mandatory mini camp next week. And I love it because Arthur Smith does not mince words, as we all know.
He does it.
He does not mince words. So he has put it out there
Oh
for
man.
all the world to know that that is his expectation. And listen, we hope the same because that'll give us an opportunity to get one step closer to seeing what these guys look like. Arthur Smith talked about the fact that he looks at the success of OTAs being about things like how are you in shape? What does it look like in terms of what your offseason workout plan was and what you bring to the table as a player? What does it look like as far as your progression in understanding the playbook? Next week for mandatory minicamp, we'll be able to hopefully see people begin to separate themselves that much more as the Falcons then prepare to come back in July for training camp. But we got some thoughts from Arthur Smith, and then Jarvis and I have thoughts. So we're going to give it to you right here. So, first of all, one of the things that Arthur Smith talked about, and we've actually mentioned it to you guys as well, and that is who he was impressed with, Jarvis. And he actually called out a few people there, and not to say, of course, that he's not impressed with more, but we're going to focus on those individuals that he called out today, including Demir Bird, Kadero Hodge, Jermaine Ifedi, whom you and I both talked about, as well as Dean Marlowe when we talked about the revamped secondary. So those are individuals whom he's been impressed with so far during OTAs as well as both QBs.
You know what? The thing about the thing, and the one that really stands out to me is because I've been an advocate for you know improving this offensive line for quite
Yes,
some time.
yes.
And when you are projected, I say projected, and I'm
Mhm.
using air quotes for all the people that that's listening on our audio platform. Make sure you go ahead and download that podcast and go ahead and give us a 5-star review. I think it concerned me
Mhm.
that you're coming back with the same offensive line that gave up 40 plus sacks last year.
Yes.
And for guys like a guy like Jermaine Ifedi's name to be mentioned
Mhm.
in that conversation, that kind of makes me happy, right? Because I'm
Yes.
all for competition. I'm
Oh,
all for
yeah.
pushing guys. And if you have a guy that you did not pick the 5th-year option up on, and
Mhm.
Caleb McGarry,
Yeah.
and that means that you don't care for him to be around after this season. So why not go ahead and replace him now?
Mhm.
And even if it comes to the point where you feel like there still may be a space for him, move
Mhm.
down left guard, throw him in that competition. Go
Mhm.
and let them figure it out down there because I'm I'm real big on competition because
Yeah.
though no one needs to be settled in on where they are as a player or as a
Exactly.
starter, unless
Mhm.
you're a guy like a Jake Matthews and
Mhm.
he's not going to rest on his laurels, or as a
Mhm.
Grady Jarrett, for a fact he's not going to rest on his laurels. He's going to do any and everything
Yeah.
to make sure he maximizing his potential day in and day out. If I can
Yeah.
use a colloquialism there. But yeah, I think it's really cool to hear that
Mhm.
name, hear those names. Like I said, Dean Marlowe. I think the secondary is going to be much better than it was last year.
Yes.
And when you hear guys like that names being called, I think it makes me happy.
Yes. And then you talked about one of the things that Arthur Smith has not just preached about, but he's actually been about that last season and even in this offseason as well. And that is making sure that we know that competition is there at every position. And that includes something interesting that he said in terms of Felipe Franks, who is, of course, taking reps at tight end. So he's a part of sort of this hybrid position group that has been formulated, but he will also be taking reps at QB. So again, while Smith said that he was definitely pleased with what he's seen out of Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ritter so far, Felipe Franks will still be taking reps at QB. And I like it because you just never know. It's almost like letting you know, oh, somebody's always lurking in the background. So you need to be on your A game every single time. But there were also a couple of interesting comments that came out from the assistant coaches. And I wanted to mention those, Jarvis, because we've talked about one of those guys recently as well. And even last week mentioned one of them as well. And that is Richie Grant. So, assistant secondary coach John Hoke talked about him and talked about the fact that he feels like Richie Grant has taken a good step. And I thought that was a very positive comment about Richie because we talked about him needing to take that step and being a part of a revamped, evolving, and hopefully more successful secondary.
And the thing about Richie though, like I
Mm-hmm.
always felt like my eyes told me that this guy is going to be a good football player,
Agreed.
and like given the circumstances last year, having to step in, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it shouldn't be an indictment on what he did last year. It
Yes.
should be, a stamp of approval that say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this guy has talent. For him to go down there and play and jump in probably one of the hardest positions in the secondary in
Mm-hmm.
today's game, given how much action nickel cornerbacks get, and they're looked at as starters nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for him to go in there and do a solid job, I think it speaks
Mm-hmm.
to him being able to grasp concepts, being
Yes.
able to make adjustments on the fly, which is pretty much what a DB has to do,
Yes.
on a daily basis, and
Mm-hmm.
very quickly too. I don't think people understand how it goes down when you play in that
Right.
position. It is probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the hardest positions to play in the NFL.
Indeed.
That's for sure. Because you think about it, they're actually backpedaling when guys are running at them full speed. Think about that. So, but I am excited about Richie Grant, playing the safety position full time this year,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing solely on that. And I like I said, I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to be like, oh, that's why they drafted him in the second
That's
round of the
why they,
2021
yeah.
NFL draft.
That is why they drafted him so high. And it's just good to hear Coach also say that Richie's taken a good step because I'm going to use your word. That tells me that he is not being indicted for and kept kind of like on the hook for what he didn't, quote unquote, do last year with the high expectations of him being a high draft pick.
Right.
That's saying that, hey, they see potential in him and they're looking to give him opportunities to show this year what he can do. And also, TJ Yates spoke highly on Drake London, but we're going to actually talk a little bit more about that in a topic that we're going to broach tomorrow about the Falcons in terms of the fact that London thinks that he indeed has enough speed to go over the top. Also, Dean Pease had an opportunity to meet with the media today. And as I always say, Jarvis, Dean is going to give us a Deanism each and every time he steps to the podium. So I love to hear it. I love to hear what Dean
Yeah.
has to say when he gets
So he said he let it be known today that he invited AJ Terrell to the play callers meeting,
mm-hmm.
because he wants Terrell to take on more of a vocal leadership role, even though he's not a quote rah rah type.
Right.
And I think that says a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because when you think about where AJ Terrell, the leap that he made last year,
Mm-hmm.
like going from maybe the third best corner in his rookie season,
Right.
or coming and going into the draft being the
Right.
third best prospect, cornerback
Mm-hmm.
prospect,
Mm-hmm.
to making the jump to being ranked right behind Jalen Ramsey,
Yes.
and one of the best corners in the league from
Yes.
a grading standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of like, okay, we've seen the progression that we've like to see in the first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to see you start taking on more of a role and being
Yes.
a leadership role and being more vocal. Like I said, you don't
Agreed.
have to be a rah rah guy. We know that's
Right.
not who you are, and that's what I love about Dean Pease. He finds
Mm-hmm.
little things and draws those things out, of all of his players. He finds how, like for Isaiah Oliver, for example, he said,
Yeah.
you know what, you don't play that well outside,
Right.
but I think I can make you work right here in the inside playing that nickel. Like
Hmm.
that's the mind of a great coach, a
Yes.
guy that can figure out how to draw something that he sees in the player, and he's
Hmm.
been really good at that. So
Yes.
if Dean P said you need to be more of a leader, well, damn it, AJ Terrell is going to be more of a leader.
Yeah, assume the position. Assume the
Exactly.
position. Yeah, we love it. We love it. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about a guy who always assumes the position. He is always up for the task, no matter what. You want to hear about it? We'll talk about him, one of our local products doing some things out there, and we love to see it.
Some big
How about
things.
it? And for the culture, on the other side, it's ATL Day Ones. Come back and join us for it.